Good morning. David Slater, I'm the Executive Director of the Clay County EDC, and we would like to introduce you to NEBA, which is Northland Education and Business Alliance. And it's a network of education and business organizations in Clay and Platte counties, whose vision is to promote and provide business-driven educational opportunities for you, our next generation of business leaders. I will be your host during this session, but we have two other NEBA members working on the background. Brian Noller, the Director of Northland Career Centers, and Mark Moss, who's the College and Career Director for the North Kansas City School District. Just a few quick notes before we get to introduce our guest speakers for this session. The session will run 40 minutes with a hard stop at 40. Our industry experts will begin by sharing their professional history and insights, but we want this to feel more like a conversation. At the bottom of your screen, you should see an option to use a Q&A feature. We encourage you to use that to post any questions you might have at any point in this session. We might not be able to get them all in, but we'll do our best. When the session ends, you'll be asked to take a very short survey. Please give us feedback on this event so we can get better hosting things like this in the future. Last but not least, this session will be recorded and available online in the near future. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to introduce our guests, and they can all tell a little bit about themselves. So we have Rene Cooper with Northgate Middle School. Rene, you want to give us a little background?
Yes, hello, I'm Rene Cooper. I am the teaching and learning coach at Northgate Middle School. My career path, I think I'm 23 years in. I should have thought about that before, but I started out as a primary teacher, and then I taught English language learners for a while. And then I also was a grant facilitator for our district. And so through that program, I had 60 teachers get certified to teach English language learners. And so now I'm a coach.
Very good. Dr. Keith Jones with the Platte County High School.
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here this morning. This is my 15th year in education. I didn't take the normal route. I was a public relations and marketing and fundraising specialist for Sprint. So I was in the business world in corporate America before I got into education. But I did start out as a journalism teacher at F.L. Schlegel High School in Kansas City, Kansas, and coached basketball and did all those things and taught English. I've held administrative positions in the Blue Valley School District on the Kansas side, and went into my first administration position at Lawrence Free State High School. And then I've been in the middle school level for the last 5 years, being a principal at Billy Mills Middle School in Lawrence. And now I have the great opportunity to come to the great state of Missouri, that's how they say it, Missouri, as I am leaving my Jayhawk ties and I'm in Tiger country over here. And now serving as the head principal at the high school here at Platte County High School. So, had a kind of diverse background, but glad to be at the high school level serving the people in Platte County.
We'll get back to that diverse background. It's interesting how you landed that spot. Brandon Lewis, Liberty Public Schools. What's up?
Hey, everybody. My name is Brandon, and this is year 16 for me, and it's year 11 here in Missouri. I started my career in my hometown of Tracy, California, at a charter school, and then met a girl and moved to Kansas City, and
that too, won't we?
I've been here ever since. So started my time here in Liberty as a 5th grade teacher, and for the last 5 years, I've had the joy to be an innovation and learning coach, very similar to what Rene does in her district. Titles are slightly different, but roles are very similar, to where I am in 2 different elementary buildings here in Liberty, where I get to partner with teachers and their students in the classroom on a daily basis.
Very good. Well, welcome. Kaylee.
Hi, I'm Callie Young. I'm the assistant principal at Segrist Elementary School in the Platte County School District. And I had the privilege of working in the same district as Dr. Jones. And much like Dr. Jones, I did not go the traditional route. I probably would have benefited a lot from a career expo like this. I was a bio major in college and then became a political science major and then went to law school for a little while. Decided I did not want to become a lawyer and switched, got my master's in education. and taught for almost a decade at North Kansas City High School. So I was a high school psychology teacher for about 10 years, went back and got my degree in administration, and then did internships at a high school level and then also at an elementary level. And then I got my first administrative job in the Platte County School District. This is my 7th year there. And my first job was at an all kindergarten building. So I went from all seniors to all kindergartners the very next year. So it's been a great journey to get where I am today.
Very good. So let's start off. What do y'all love about what you do? Dr. Jones, you want to go first?
Okay. We have the best job, really. I know right now it's a tough time in education, but really we have the best job in America as far as we are able to impact people every day. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I love about, the sky's the limit and how you impact people. Because first of all, we impact kids on a daily basis. So I love the fact that I get to, and every day is a different day. There's no same day. So not only do I get to impact kids every day, we get to impact people. So our staff, our teachers are from, people come, we get to work with people and develop them and grow them. And so I think I really am into that. And I've enjoyed seeing people blossom and change and grow over the time that I've had to interact with them. So that's what makes me really get up and come in the morning knowing that some of the things that I may do may make a difference in someone's life. So planting that seed is really important to me.
What about you, Callie?
I would say, very much the same thing. I think if you go into education, you go into it because you want to make a difference in people's lives. And being able to interact with kids on a daily basis, being able to interact with staff, and really hope that you are truly making a difference in the direction that they're going in their life is a really powerful thing. I also love that no day is the same. You will never have a boring day in education. You can have everything planned out perfectly, and you can get to not a single one of those things on the to-do list some days because things come up. And I think that's challenging, but it's a good challenging. And you have the opportunity to be innovative and creative. And I just think it's a really great field to go into.
What about you, Brandon?
Agree 100% with what you guys were saying. And I think, Callie, how you even said how none of it can go the way you plan, and yet some of it can still be the most successful days too, which is what I love about education. I love that in my role, where I think other people might view like a coaching role as someone who is an expert. I love that I get to come in and take a learner role and that learner stance every day. And to me, that's what's most exciting. So here I am 16 years into my career, and I'm still learning so much every day. To be able to maybe start my morning in a kindergarten classroom with 5 and 6-year-olds, where we are focusing on phonemic awareness and learning how to read. And then I could go to a 5th grade class and we're working on a project that's focused on like the design process with engineering, and we're partnering with local firms. There's just a wide range of what you can do and experience. And that's even just within the elementary world. So, I mean, you think about even K-12 or even higher education, it's just a wide range of what we can do. And I think that's what I love so much about it.
What do you love, Renee?
Oh, so much of I was laughing because I was thinking, I always say no day's the same. And so you're not going to get bored. I think that learner approach, as well as what Brandon was talking about, like the ability to learn and try things out. That's the other thing that's big for me, is that we get to take these instructional risks with teachers and see how the kids respond, what worked, what didn't work. And then we go back to the drawing board and try it again. And so it's just that love and knowing that what we are doing is making a difference. And we have to watch it and keep trying and learning along the way.
Hey, I'm going to ask we have 60 students or teachers on with us right now, so it's very exciting. I just wanted to point out that if you have a question as we go through here, we've got our scripted questions. And I'm Brian Nolan, I'm the director of Northland Career Center, and Dr. Mark Moss, we're kind of monitoring the Q&A. If you have a question, pose it now so we make sure we get to it before we do our hard stop. So I just wanted to make sure if you're a participant, to tell you welcome, but also know that if you have questions, we want to get to those too. So put them in the Q&A now, and Dr. Moss and I will help facilitate those questions. So.
Your questions are a whole lot more important than mine. So I'm gonna ask Callie, what's your typical day like?
Well, as we said, no day is the same. I think typical day is definitely being able to start with the kids, make sure to, it's good for us. I think it's sometimes you have so much on your plate. You could stay in your office 24 hours a day and still have things to do. But I think it's so important to be able to get out and get with the kids, get into the classrooms, see the teaching, see the learning that's going on, because that is the motivation behind our jobs. So I think that piece is critical to make sure that you are really interacting throughout the day. Again, no day is the same, but I think, being able to, in a typical day, be planned and be purposeful, but at the same time, be very flexible, because you know that things are going to pop up, and you know that your job, no matter what, is to do what's best for kids. And so I think literally in every decision that we make throughout a day, we go back to that same purpose every single time. And that's kind of our guiding force throughout the day with whatever events come up.
Brandon, your turn.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to echo everything she just said.
Okay, Rene, your turn.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
And kind of what I alluded to before, just with the ability to be in so many different learning environments, that is what makes these days great. And I will say, I'm gonna take it here and make this answer a little more COVID related. I feel like this year has brought a lot of large differences in that, and I think it's nice that I guess that I'm in a role where I can, I know that the others that are on this panel feel the same way, that we're in a spot where we can find opportunities to serve other educators as well, whether it's a simple giving them a break so they can actually get out of their classroom for a few minutes, or bringing their lunch to them. I mean, there's just a lot of little things I think this year that's made days even more different. But the fact that there is a variety and that no day is the same, I think is something that I do love the most about my job. I don't know if it was a monotonous routine, I don't think that'd be a career path that I'd be too excited about.
Rene?
Sorry about that. So for me, part of my day, I try to make sure that I carve out a little bit of time, at least maybe 20 minutes to grow myself, so that I am planned out, so that I can plan to work with my teachers. Sometimes I have teachers working on different things. And so part of my role is to make sure that I bring to them new ideas, new resources and things like that. So I always try to have some research carved out. But I meet with teachers regularly. Right now, because of COVID times, I also have a caseload of kids that I'm checking in on who are 100% virtual. So I have like just a handful of kids to check in, but also I'm responsible for the professional development in my building. And so there's a lot of moving parts and coordinating that I'm doing at my level that might look a little bit different than when I was a classroom teacher.
How about you, Dr. Jones?
I want to kind of speak from a administrator's, like, my whole day. So like I try to work out 4 days a week. Like I said, the word is try. So typically in the morning I get up about 5:30, I run 2 miles, going to get to the gym, and work out for a hard 40 minutes, and that just starts my day off right. I can speak for myself. I'm try to be as spiritual as I can. So I try to start my day off with a devotional in my car, because the reason why I add that piece is because I know once I step on my grounds, everybody wants it, right? And so I have to be in the mental space, because I'm problem solving all day. All day I'm listening to people's problems, upset parents, people who are pulling me. And so I know that in order for me to be effective, I have to be in the right headspace to do this job, because I want to be positive. I want to be, so I kind of put myself on hold to be able to pour into other people. So I thought that was very important for me to mention that. But I try to be intentional. Every day of the week, I kind of script kind of what I want to do, whether it's get in the hallways in the beginning of the morning and greet kids, check in with my staff, managing a big building with, 1,200 kids, even though it's half of them now, checking in with all the principals and finding out what's going on, how I can support them in their worlds. But then I try to be intentional about getting in the classroom and also, making sure I return phone calls and those type of things. But and like today, like you said, every day is different. Today we are giving root beer floats to our entire staff. So I get to have some fun. I have fun in my job. And if you don't have fun in this job, you won't last long. And so like, I think along with making sure our kids are getting good instruction, making sure our teachers are supported, we have fun. And so, and in this COVID time when we have to remind people, why this work is important, how we keep people energized, you have to be intentional about making people feel appreciated and then supporting people. So like I said, a sample is today that we're having a root beer float party after school. And so I know that I invited Brian and some of them other ones over afterwards. So, Dr. Slater, if you want to come over and get a root beer float, you're right across the street.
I'm heading that. I thought I was heading over there right now, man.
Well, we can send one over for lunchtime.
Thanks for the doctor, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll do my best, Dr. Jones, to make it over there. So after that.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what level of education, Brandon, do you need before you can become a teacher?
I would say obviously most teachers just start with a bachelor's degree. I know that there are a lot of universities now that are they're kind of almost even lumping in that grad level work and getting that first level of master's degree with your bachelor's. And I know a lot of teachers are kind of starting to do that. I feel like I've noticed, I guess I could speak personally. I waited after about 5 years of teaching before I went back to school and got my master's. And I felt like it allowed me to have some experience to be able to connect to what I was learning. So I wonder about those ones that just kind of keep going to school and keep learning and keep like stockpiling those degrees. I think there needs to be a little bit of a balance with that experience with it too. So I do value that experience piece with it. So like I said, I think I had about 5 years before I started my master's program, which took a couple of years. And that's where I'm at right now. I got married and had a couple kids, and I made the commitment with my family that I would pause on some of the, I guess, traditional learning, still growing myself every day with all of the great learning that we can have, exposure to online and stuff like that. But there are plenty of opportunities out there to continue your education for sure.
Nice.
Can I speak from a different perspective on that?
Sure.
Because I kind of was the one that kind of stacked, right?
Yeah.
So, but I started, my first 2-3 years I was in corporate America, so I kind of started behind the 8 ball when it comes to getting the education. But I taught for 5 years, and while I was teaching, I, was getting my master's and then got my doctorate, all those type of things. Mainly because like I was young, I got married, we had 2 kids, and it was kind of like the timing of like me being away at school and not being home at night when they were little was better than now, I guess, me missing their events. And so it was more of an agreement between me and my wife at the time that this was the best for our family. But in the same breath, when you talk about degrees and things that you need to be a good educator, I think there needs to be a degree of common sense and kind and compassion, because if you don't love kids and you don't like working with people, this is not the industry for you. And so they need to like put that as like a minor or a major to check people, because some people want to come and just teach the content without building the relationship. And I've learned in my field, you got to have the relationship most of the time to be able to teach kids. People don't learn from people they don't like. And so I think that is twofold.
Okay, Rene, you answer that, then we're going to the important questions that the students are going to be asking y'all. So,
well, I think there's, so listening, I think the level of education, there's so many different opportunities to do different things. I had gone back to get my master's. My master's was in curriculum instruction with early childhood emphasis, so I could go back and teach kindergarten. Well, and then I got a certification to teach ELL. And right now I'm currently, so this is 23 years in, and I had a wild idea. I never got my admin degree, but I feel like I've been kind of doing that work. So now I'm working on an admin degree to get that knowledge and experience. And so I think there's lots of different pathways. I think what's important is that you do what's right for you. You heard the 2 different experiences from Dr. Jones and Brandon. And I think that is, it can be honored in every aspect of education. We need all of it to come together in all the different roles that we serve. And I would second that. You have to love kids. You have to love kids, and relationships are super important.
We're gonna start that degree, Ms. Cooper. We're gonna start it. We're gonna get it
Let's do it.
I
certified.
like that idea.
Yeah,
Run
because
it to the governor.
I can coach content all day, but if you don't love kids, that's really hard.
Or
And-
like people.
Yeah, or like people. Oh my gosh, yes.
I think we always talk about, like, as educators in the classroom with students, we talk about how there's no exact path to learning something. And I kind of think it's the same way here too. Like, to get to where you're going to be at some point in your career, there's no exact path. I think as we talked about it here, just with us talking about it. So I'm glad that this question came up. And Dr. Jones, I love that your journey's been the complete opposite of mine too. I think that's fantastic.
Good morning. We have a couple of questions in the Q&A, so I'll throw two of them out there and you guys can take the choice on which one you'd like to answer. The first one is, how do you approach hard, difficult situations in order to continue to be successful? And how do you personally stay motivated? And then kind of looping that in, I was also going to ask Gabby's questions, and that was from Allie. I was going to also ask Gabby's, which is, what is the most challenging thing you're seeing in education right now? And the pandemic's kind of an easy one to identify right now, but even beyond that, what you see year after year. And thank you.
Callie, you want to go? I know we
Yeah, I'm
answered it last
thinking. I'll start with the most challenging thing. And like Dr. Moss said, I think the pandemic would be an easy answer for all of us to say right now. But kind of putting that aside, I would say the most challenging thing I think in education is that I feel like for good reasons, there have been some changes in education, even since I started 16 years ago. I think education used to focus solely on academics. That was the main focus. And I have watched over the years, and I love this direction, where we are incorporating really helping students develop their social emotional learning and helping them become good people, helping them be able to develop good decision-making skills, helping them to be able to develop those soft skills that are so critical for them as they go through their childhood and as they go through their teen years and into their future careers. And so I think that we're seeing that align with more what companies are wanting and what businesses are wanting when they're saying, we want people that can communicate. We want people that can be thoughtful. We want people that can be creative and innovative. And so I think we have had to change, again, for a good way, our direction in education and understand that we really are truly developing the whole child and we're no longer focused on academics. So while that's a really good direction, and I am 100% behind that, I do think it can be challenging at times when you're trying to balance all of that in a school and in a classroom. And there's a lot on, I think, everyone's plate to be able to balance that. But I think, again, you get into this job because you want to make a difference. And if you're wanting to make a difference with kids, it's more than just the content. So I think it's really helping them develop those soft skills. So that was what I would say would be the biggest challenge but again, the biggest benefit, I think, at the same time for education today.
Very good.
I think I love how you ended it by saying biggest challenge, but also could be the biggest benefit. And what I was going to speak to when it comes to the biggest challenge, I feel like kind of is the same thing, but it is involving the fact that, like, our society, especially regarding technology, is so it's rapidly progressing faster than we can even control, pretty much. And so I feel like that brings such an interesting challenge for educators, because on one side, to use that technology as a benefit and to enhance education is unbelievable. And we are taking advantage of it, but probably not even to its fullest extent. But at the same time, trying to compete with students who they use technology differently. And so trying to find that perfect relationship in, I guess, that consumption versus that creation, that is a very large challenge. And that is something that I enjoy working through with colleagues and with students as well.
I think one of the most challenging things, especially right now, I mean, I think in order to get into some of the positions that we're in, particularly if you're an administrator in any leadership position, is that sometimes you can't please everybody, right? And so defining what your core values are and how you operate as just a person, as a leader, I think, and staying true to those, I think can be challenging. I wrote down two words, humility and being humble is the two words I just wrote down, just because sometimes it's not always about being right. There are days that I get chewed out by parents and people I work with, you know, that are not happy because they feel like we're not doing something. There are days where kids are not having good days, so they take it out. And at the end of the day, you know, how I react or how I respond is so important, right? And so I think, but people forget we're people too. You know, we're humans with lives and emotions. And so I think channeling all that and still doing what's best for kids, because I've been in a lot of different educational spaces, and we say, you know, we want to do what's best for kids. Like you hear that in like almost everybody's mission statement, everyone's slogan, but sometimes our actions do not say we're doing what's best for kids or teachers. And so that's where I struggle with, you know, making sure we always come back to the center of doing what's best for kids. But I love my job. This is the best, toughest job that can be, but it can be really challenging making tough decisions at times.
And to jump into that, I would like you guys to talk about this. Dr. Jones, you really led into this, is how do you patiently deal with difficult people? And this is for everyone, like fellow teachers, students, or parents. And then another one that's kind of specific to you, Dr. Jones, is, and Ms. Young, is what is the hardest part about being a principal? So if you guys could combine both those, that'd be great, but we'll give a chance for all four of you guys to answer.
Who wants to take that? I mean, you guys can.
I can start, and I'll talk very briefly, then we can pass it on to the admins for sure. I think Dr. Jones has hit on it a lot as far as just who you are as a person, and having that humility and being able to enter a conversation in a state of humility. I know that one of the biggest attributes that you can have to be a successful coach is to be a good listener. And I think that is not just as a coach. I think that's as an admin, that's as a teacher. And then again, that's taking it one step further. As a person, we all need to be good listeners and not just listen until they get done so you can talk and wait for your turn, but to listen and really hear people out and really see where they're coming from and getting their perspective and point of view.
And Brandon, I love that you said that and how you shared about the importance of listening, because I think that would be probably my first thing that I would go to in a challenging situation, is really just hearing people out. And I think so much of the time people just need to know that they're heard and know that you understand their perspective. And I think, like Brandon said, you have to truly be open to hearing people's perspectives. I think we tend to listen to respond and think in mind about how we're going to respond and what our side is. And you really, I feel like in education, you really truly have to be open to hearing other people's perspectives. And like Dr. Jones has already shared, not always being right, because you're not always right. Nobody is. So I think that's important. I think in addition to listening, I think it's also understanding, and I don't think I truly understood this until I had kids of my own, but I think it's also understanding that people are parents and these are their kids. And so these are going to be things that matter the most to them. And so if parents come in and they're upset and they're very passionate about it, rightly they should be. These are their kids and they want to protect them and they want what's best for their kids. And so I think in any challenging situation, especially one with parents, it's knowing and showing them that you want what's best for their child as well. And it's really figuring out what that looks like and understanding that from the parents' perspective also. So I think it's partnering with the parents. I think you have to do a lot of upfront work with parents and with staff and with students and building those relationships up front, so that when you do get to those difficult, challenging times, that they trust that you have the best intentions in whatever the situation is. And so even if you have to make a decision that is not well liked by someone in a certain situation, I think it's knowing that they can even trust, if they don't like your decision, they trust that you had in mind what was best for their child or what was best for kids. But I think that takes a lot of upfront relationship building to be able to build that trust to begin with.
Yeah, I even try to build in some protocols for myself when handling difficult parents or difficult situations. I try to do the 24-hour rule where I don't respond to emails or certain things. If someone sent me an email or did something that made me upset or really bothered me, and I know I'm not centered enough to give a good response, I may write my thoughts out or call my friend and vent, but then I don't respond for 24 hours. I've kept many jobs that way, but I think seriously, like putting some things in place to, yourself, and how you deal with, if you have to have tough conversations with parents, making sure you do it when you're right in the right mental space. I'm going to add an element. Someone asked what's been the toughest thing about being a principal, and I'm going to talk about it for me specifically, is that as a young Black male, there's not many people that look like me in this seat, right? And I feel like building relationships with community and parents that there may be some cultural differences or different perspectives has been the biggest thing. Is how do I make people feel comfortable? How do I build trust? How do I make people understand that I want what's best for your kid? Like all those different things has been interesting because I worked in various spaces, whether it was Lawrence or Blue Valley, where I was the minority, not the majority. And so that is an element. And I think you can talk about that across race, gender, all those things. Because I have colleagues that are women that have had different experiences as being head principals, right? And the things and challenges that they face. And so I think that's the element I wanted to mention because as much as I love my job, those are things that I have to navigate depending on the space that I'm at.
Thank you guys so much. Hey, I
Can-
have a question.
Wait,
Go ahead, Renee.
Renee wants to say something.
I just wanted to add on, and I 100% agree. And listening to Ms. Young talk about being a good listener. The other thing I think that is important, and it kind of connects back to what Dr. Jones had said earlier about your core values and knowing how you operate. Like the other thing is that we've got to we have to build that trust, but we also have to be honest.
Yeah.
As a coach in my building, I spent my first 2 years being the cheerleader, and I would walk out and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And I realized that I was failing that teacher and I was failing those students because my own ability to be honest in those moments. And what I've found is over time, as I've built the relationships with teachers and we've come to agreements of how we're going to work, it's really made a big difference and it's impacting our work in a positive way.
I agree.
We got another question from the crowd.
Yeah, we have a couple other questions. One I think would be very good for Ms. Young. It's asked, do you feel as a teacher it is easier to build connections with elementary students or high school students?
Great question.
And then I
Great
have a question
question.
for the coaches as well.
When I first got into education, I loved kids of all ages and I knew that, but I was a political science major in college. So I had that background and I thought, oh, I'll go into teaching something that I enjoy. And so I got certified in secondary. So I was a high school, like I said, I ended up actually doing psychology courses. I did the International Baccalaureate and the Advanced Placement Psychology courses for North Kansas City High School. And loved every bit of that job and loved building the relationships with kids. I would say the center of so many of those relationships, because I worked with mostly seniors, was really helping them get ready for those next steps in their life. And that was incredibly rewarding to be able to focus on those times and that awesome time. I mean, it's such an amazing time in their life when they're a senior in high school. They have the world in front of them. And so I think that is a great time to be building those relationships and really focusing on what's coming ahead. And, I run into some of my former students that were high school students, and now they're in this age as me, but now they're in their mid 30s. And I'll run into them at the grocery store. It always makes me feel really old, but I run into them at the grocery store and just seeing what they have done with their lives. And thank goodness for social media where I've been able to stay in touch with so many of them has been awesome. Then going to all kindergarten, I will say it's surprisingly similar. You are with kids at a critical time in their lives because for so many of them, that is their start to their educational journey. And you are with them and that's their first school experience. And so being able to help shape their view of school, being able to make those partnerships with those families, and instead of preparing kids for college, you're preparing them for their school career. It's awesome. And so I think the relationships, kids are kids, regardless. I've worked with every age group. Kids are kids. They all have their challenges. You're not going to see a senior typically throwing themselves on the ground like you might a 5-year-old, but you also usually are not likely to have a 5-year-old talk back to you like you would a senior. So there are challenges in every age group, but kids are kids, and the relationships you can build, I think, with any age group if you like kids. So I think that's important. And just also seeing the importance of where they're at in their journey. And so I love working with both. If someone asked me today, I truly love working with all age groups. There's not one that I prefer over another.
We were going to ask one more question of our coaches, and then I think I'm turning it over to Mr. Miller and Mr. Slater. Coaches, how do you work with new teachers and working with upset parents? And I think you guys each have about 30 or 45 seconds, but I know that's a skill that's so hard to grasp when you're a new teacher. And I know you guys have that opportunity to work with them.
One thing I found is that sometimes when a teacher's working with a parent in those situations, I'm trying to help the teacher plan out that conversation a little bit. Like what's the heart of the issue? What do we need? What questions can we ask the family so that they can so we can hear their side? Because I feel like planning that conversation is really important, especially for a new teacher, so that they can practice and have that language. It's something that you don't really get those opportunities in college sometimes, but this is something that it's that intentionality behind the conversation that's important.
I'll even add on too, and I think this is what Callie had kind of mentioned before. It's helping new teachers for the first time really understand that there's a reason that maybe those parents are escalating, or there's a reason behind why they're feeling something so strongly. And a lot of it is because they're advocating for their children, and they see maybe they might see a different side of their child than what you're seeing. But when push comes to shove, they are acting on behalf of their children for what they think is best for their child. So getting new teachers who might be right out of college, they might be 22, or it might be a second career where they're 30, 35. It's just getting them to understand kind of where that's coming from. And again, kind of going back to that listening lens, rather than just, well, here's what your kid did. Rather, let's listen to what the parent has to say, and really take that into heart to help build that and foster that relationship. Because again, it's not just about teacher student. It's that three-way relationship with the family as well that's at home.
Okay. Well, I'm messing with the camera, I apologize, but on behalf of NEBA, if I can get that, Mr. Slater, I'm in the background, I messed up the camera there, but on behalf of Northland Education Business Alliance and everyone, we're right at our time, and I want to thank our educators for being here today. Dr. Jones, Ms. Young, Mr. Lewis, and Ms. Cooper for doing that, and also Dr. Moss and Mr. Slater for being with us to facilitate. So thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and Dr. Jones will be over later for root beer floats. So
hey, stop by. Thank you guys.
One time. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
all y'all dropping in too.
And this will be recorded, so if there was a question that didn't get asked, feel free to email one of us that you might find through any of our various websites to make sure, because we're all engaged to help provide opportunities for students to learn about the education careers in Northland. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to hit end real quick. Thank you for being with us.